thank you for taking your time out of your busy day, Bernie, to talk to us. So, where did Shy Lowen come from? Where was the idea born out of?
So originally it was going to just be a horse and pony rescue centre. And the reason for starting it was a horse called Comet, who we came across. He was being treated really badly. He was being fended away from other people and other horses with a plank of wood, mostly because people were fearful of him. And as a result of meeting him and working with him and finding that by doing things a different way, a way that is kind of pioneered by a man called Monty Roberts, who I came across by seeing a documentary on TV, managed to turn Comet's life around. And so we decided that because people generally weren't offering rescue facilities for horses with behavioural issues, that we'd become the rescue centre in the UK for horses with behavioural issues. And that's where the idea came from. Getting the property to run it was more difficult because I was brought up on a council estate, and Eric is from Anfield. Eric is my husband, who we kind of set this up together. And so I wrote to the local authority asking if they had any land available, and they offered us the site where we are now at Buckley Hill Lane. And the site had been subject to illegal dumping of demolition waste. So the deal that we were offered was that if we cleared it, that we'd be given a lease on it. So we cleared 800 tonnes of rubble off it, which we funded ourselves privately. And we started the rescue centre here.
Had you always been into horses previously?
Yeah, so as I say, I was born in a council flat, only less than a quarter of a mile from here. And from when I was 11 and I was allowed to go on public transport myself, I used to go to Formby, which is a town about probably 7 miles away from here. And I could go there on the train, and I went there to go to the riding school. Nobody in my family had anything to do with horses, and I don't really know why I had this thing where I wanted to have something to do with horses, but it just seemed to be natural to me. So from the age of 11, sometimes intermittently because of the way life is, I've spent time with horses, and continually since I was 20, so 44 years since I was 20,
Yeah.
more since I was 11.
So it's always been a passion for your horses, or something that's always been in the back of your mind.
Yeah, so horses, something about, I love all animals, to be fair, but there's something about horses that's special. It's always like almost as if they know something that we don't know. And I think it's probably because as a species, they're so different to the human being, which I am, believe it or not, that they kind of intrigued me. And yeah, the way that they live is just so similar to people, but different at the same time. So yeah, I just have a big passion for horses.
And where did the idea for equine therapy come from? How did that develop?
So where we are here, it's in a really deprived area in the UK, so it's rates in the highest 10% for deprivation, or the lowest 10%, depending on which way you look at it. So having horses in an area like this is very alien to the people around here. And so when we were trying to set the place up, We were absolutely pestered constantly with young people who wanted to destroy things that we were making as fast as we were making it. And then one day we managed to catch 5 of the kids who were doing it. And the 5 kids were invited to help instead. They didn't believe they'd be allowed to help. So they weren't allowed to help. And there's a weird thing of coincidence or whatever it is, but we had 5 horses when we set up here, and we caught 5 kids. So if that's a coincidence, I don't know, but that's what happened. So those 5 kids changed beyond recognition, but also left friends. So we had 20 or 30 kids a year at some points. And I actually thought I'd invented equine assisted therapy because I saw the change in the kids and I saw the way the horses reacted when they were with them. And I then started doing some research. I mean, this was going back to like the year 2000, and the internet wasn't big in the UK at that time, it was only just new. But trying to do some research, discovered that in America and Australia they were already doing this work, and ultimately did my training with an American organisation called EGALA to do equine assisted therapy on a formal basis. And I started to do it on a formal basis in 2010.
Tell us a bit about equine therapy, how it works, and how the client works with the horse, and the horse works with the client, and why horses are so good at what they do.
So there's different models for equine assisted therapy, but the one that we use, which we've kind of developed a lot ourselves, is to have the horse mirroring the person. So the person will generally work with an individual horse that they've chosen. The horses here are all rescued horses, so they all have their own backstory as well. And the horse that the client chooses straight away tells you something about the client, because they'll sometimes they choose a horse who's got a similar backstory to theirs, and sometimes it's just to do with the horse's personality, and sometimes the horse actually chooses them. So when they choose the horse, they work with the horse on the horse's issues because they're all rescued horses. And we uh, we watch the horse to see how the horse's interactions are with the client, because the horse will mirror the client's emotional state. So your client can say things, and how real the statements they're making are will be mirrored by the horse. Because if someone's telling you something that's not really what they feel, then the horse will sense the change in their emotional state through the rate of their heart beating and through the smell of the hormones that they're producing. But the horse knows that the client's easy with what they're saying or uneasy with what they're saying. They don't know what the client's saying because they don't speak English. Probably neither do I, because it's English. But hey. And so the horse's mirroring of the client helps you to help the client. And the horse can own the emotion. Certainly in the initial stages when the client might not feel comfortable to share some of the things that, in order to heal, you might need to share. But the horse passes no judgment, so they don't care. They don't care what you've done. They don't care what you're thinking of doing. They don't care about any of that. What they care about is who you really are. And once somebody is who they really are, then they heal, and then they become best version of themselves that can possibly be. So that's kind of how it works. It looks like magic, but really it's not. But it is really as well.
It's definitely magic from my experience. So obviously, I came through Shy Lowen as part of Tom Harrison House.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with uh, helping veterans in general, but also specifically Tom Harrison House?
So, um, from 2010, we worked with young people mostly, and there was in the equine assisted therapy world, there was more interest growing in how much horses can help veterans. And so we were interested in that. And just alongside of that, there was a new project starting in Liverpool, which was Tom Harrison House. And they were in the process of creating um, that organisation and wanted to put the best possible therapies in place that weren't always what's been tried before, because um, the people in recovery, there've been a lot of things that have been tried that hadn't worked so well, and they wanted to see if there was ways of doing it that would work in a better way, or a way that would be more long lasting. So the people who were setting up Tom Harrison House asked if they could come and try and see what is this equine therapy that they'd seen, because we just had a couple of years earlier had a documentary on television about the work we did with teenagers. So they'd seen that and they wanted to see if it was potentially going to be useful for veterans. 5 of them came, and they had a look around and they met some of the horses. And as we were walking around the site, the horse called Comet, who I mentioned before, who we set up the organisation with originally, he was around and about with a horse who he had as his best friend, an ex-race horse called Foxy Lady. And as we were walking around, he took a real interest in one of the 5 people who come. And he was so interested in this person that they they recognised that the horse had something going on with this man, and said, what's happening here? So I said, I don't want to discuss it because it's going to be personal to this guy. So they said, we haven't got any secrets. And the man said, it's okay. There's nothing, I've got nothing that they don't already know. So I talked about what the horse was reflecting from this chap, and as the as it went by, and I told them more things that the horse was picking up, the people all began to cry because they were so emotional by what was coming through. And as the kind of feelings went deeper, the other horse, Foxy Lady, came and blocked, so she stood in between me and the man, which told me that now he reached the point where he didn't want to carry on, he didn't want to go further. So I said that to them, and he said that um, for him, that horse had been like his mum had been when he was younger, and had protected him. So that was the point. Having had that happen just in a totally natural way, not contrived or anything, they knew that this place was going to be the right place to send their clients to. So we did. They had a first group of 4 clients originally, um, who were like the pilot group for Tom Harrison House. So this was in 2014, so 10 years ago now since they started their work, and so many people have benefited from it. Unbelievable, really. Um, So that was the start of it. So we worked with the pilot group. One of the pilot group also had the opportunity to spend some time with the guy from California who I mentioned before, Monty Roberts. So he got to be in a short televised documentary with Monty Roberts about horses working with veterans. So Monty Roberts spent 10-15 minutes working with him. And then it went from there, and it's gone from strength to strength. So
Yeah.
we then, because of the work with Tom Harrison House, we've worked with other veteran groups as well. So we do stuff with an organisation called Mind Force, who work more with mental health, like PTSD, rather than with clients who are in recovery. Sometimes the clients are in recovery, but not always. So, and we've done a little bit with the veterans from Sale Sharks, the rugby team.
Yeah.
They do work with veterans, and they've been here.
You mentioned, obviously, you do a lot of work with the youngsters in the community and the schools. Can you tell us a bit more about that, like how the youngsters get involved and what the difference is between working with the veterans and working with the schools?
Yeah, so well, we do a few different programs. So the therapy program for young people, it's often working with young people who've been involved in like some sort of violent conduct. So they've been excluded from school because of violent behaviour. And we call that program Wilder Heart. And in that program, the young person works on a one-to-one basis in terms of humans, and a one-to-one basis in terms of a horse. And their horse will be a horse who was formerly wild. So usually from the Conway area of Snowdonia, ponies who've lived wild, and the young person's role is to get the pony to accept human beings as friends and to help the pony to convert from being a wild feral pony into being a pony who's comfortable in a domestic environment. In doing so, the young person finds out a lot about their own emotions and about how working with the pony and seeing how the pony reacts doesn't need to resort to violence if communication is used properly. How to use communication instead of violence to find out a way of getting going forward. We do alternative curriculum education as well. So we do where children aren't settled at school, and that can be for a whole myriad of reasons. But people who don't learn well in a classroom environment, so they can come here and spend whole school days here, and that can be for the whole of their school life, or it can be for a term or a half term, whatever the length of time is that it needs for that person to either engage for the first time with education or to be engaged if they've kind of fell by the wayside and are refusing to attend or whatever. So it gives them a goal sometimes. So if they've had problems at school, and it's because they just don't see a point to it. Sometimes they see a point to it. We have a particular case where a young man who'd been excluded from several schools, who was here, discovered that being with horses uh, could lead him into a really good career, and he then needed to work hard at school in order to achieve that career, and that's exactly what he did. So he went back into school, got himself his GCSEs that he needed to go to college and become a farrier. Got an apprenticeship and is now working in the USA as a farrier, and a very well respected farrier too. So it can lead to lots of things like that. We do primary school groups. So the primary school groups usually from areas of Liverpool where there's all different ethnicities all living together, and horses have no judgment, so they don't care and are just humans about where you're from or what colour you are or whatever it is that people choose to have prejudices about. Um, so they come and they do a programme called My Horse, where they learn about the horse in a physical sense, if you like. So they find out what colour they are and what their markings are and what their height and weight is and all of those things. And that's designed to integrate groups of children, so that they, first of all, have to be alongside an animal that's numerous times bigger than they are, in an environment where it's completely different to the inner city where they've been brought up. And to see that the biggest strength that you have is to be gentle, because horses are so incredibly powerful, but yet will do far more for you if you're gentle with them than they will do if you're forceful. They don't retaliate if you're gentle. Um, so yeah, teaches the children a lot, for those children. And the other thing that we do with children is offer them volunteering opportunities. So kids can come from anywhere. To come without an adult, they have to be 11, and they come and they can do as much or as little as they want to do. What they learn is that the more you put into something, the more you get out of it. So they can earn themselves riding lessons by helping here. They can learn how to train horses from nowhere to a point where they're ridden and can do all sorts of things. So it's up to them how much they want to get out of it.
I've witnessed it through the veterans and Tom Harrison House, and through volunteering here and seeing the youngsters that work here, like the benefits of really what Shy Lowen does. I certainly think it's well known that it's not cheap to keep horses, and I've certainly seen, from my experience here, I've seen you underneath a tractor fixing it. I've seen you working with the youngsters, working with the veterans, working with the horses, and everything in between. So tell us about some of the struggles Shy Lowen faces.
So we've just come through a major struggle, where we thought we might not even get through it. So as mentioned before, the site belongs to local authority. Everything on the site now, Shy Lowen's a registered charity now, but it was originally paid for in full by my husband and myself. So we remortgaged our house to do that, and we still have another year and a bit of that mortgage to pay. So that's our personal investment into it, if you like. In terms of the struggle, so we had a lease on the land which ran out in 2020. Completely unexpectedly, because we were probably a bit naive, we thought that the difference that we've made in the area, that the local authority would be eager to support us, and that turned out to not be true. So we had quite a battle on our hands to get a new lease on the land. We really wanted to purchase the land, and that's still a plan, but to make it totally permanent. But we eventually managed to get a lease after 4 years of it running out. And we'd been trying for 3 years prior to that. So it actually took us 7 years to renew the lease. Now that meant that the buildings that we'd paid for to be built fell into disrepair because we couldn't get any grant funding to do any repairs to the buildings because we didn't have any permanents. So that's been a major struggle. And we're just coming out of that now. But the buildings are in a worse state than they should have been at the point when we started putting the repairs in place, if that makes sense. So there's more repairs needed now. It's one of them, a stitch in time saves nine and all that. So we're at probably about not 9 stitches, we need about 9 million stitches that we need now. So, but we'll get through it. The cost of living crisis has hit horses just as much as anybody else. The price has increased for a sack of feed from what was £6.90. So we get it like trade cost, £6.90 at the beginning of January 2022 to £8.15 a sack now. A bale of haylage has risen from £35 at that time to £50 now. So the feed bill alone has risen absolutely astronomically. So we were running at the beginning of 2022 at a weekly cost of £2,000, and today the weekly cost is £3,000. So massive increase in costs. At the same time as for the cost of living for everybody, all the human beings who support us, has led to a decrease in them having the ability to donate. So we get less in donations. And we also had to face the fact that grant funding was less because of the situation that I explained where we didn't have permanence. So we couldn't prove that this project would be still in existence in 2 years' time. So we couldn't get any funding to deliver any activities for any distance in advance beyond like 9 months to a year. So it's very, very challenging. But we're through the other side now. And the plans are in place to develop the site further. And when I say develop the site, I don't mean build on it because, well, first of all, it's greenbelt, and second of all, we are conservationists at heart as well. So the wildlife is important and the welfare of the site as a green space, an open space, but we want to make it so that it's more accessible for people. And it's very muddy because it's clay, so it holds water. So we're trying to make it so that you can access all parts of the site. And we envisage being able to do that by the end of this year if the current funding that we're applying for is forthcoming. So, yeah, hard, but not impossible.
Nothing's impossible. So if people wanted to get involved and support Shy Lowen financially, but more from a time perspective, how can people help?
Some people just want to look after the horses. I don't say just want to. No, some people really want to look after the horses, and that's brilliant because that's what's at the heart of what we do anyway. We also need people who, and this happens less. So obviously there are buildings here that everything is made of timber, but it needs to be maintained. So we need people who've got the know-how and the time to do the building maintenance. It doesn't cost anything. We supply all the materials and we also have tools. We need people to do groundworks with horses. There's always ongoing issues with fencing that constantly needs to be replaced and repaired. We've got, well, in the process of creating a memory garden. So there's even gardening opportunities for people. So there's anything really. There's trees, so the trees need to be managed and maintained, and if they die, as trees do sometimes, need to get removed and all of that for safety purposes because it can't fall on someone. So anything that somebody wants to do in the great outdoors.
So over your time running, Shy Lowen, what do you reckon the biggest? What's your fondest memory looking back?
Oh, that's a hard one.
I mean, fondest memory, biggest achievement, something that really stands out.
I think that the biggest thing is that the message of kindness and that there's a better way of doing things for horses, animals in general, and for people too. That there is a better way of doing things, um, and the fact that weirdly and totally unexpectedly, there's been quite a lot of recognition in terms of awards being given. Um, Probably, I mean, last year the charity became the UK Charity of the Year, issued by the Equestrian Business Awards, which was just massive. And uh, personally, um, having been invited to the House of Lords to receive an award for work in animal welfare in relation to the work done in animal welfare alongside human welfare. The fact that that happens draws that to the attention of other people, if you like, and lets people see that there is a better way than the way that we've done it for so many years before, both in terms of the way that we manage horses and also the way that we manage people's mental health. Um, some of the work in mental health is done on the basis that, like, they never mind sort of arm around type of support, whereas what's needed is that plus the building of resilience and tenacity that will take the person forward once their arm around the shoulder isn't there anymore, because they have to be their own arm around the shoulder. So yeah, that, I think.
We've spoken about, well, you mentioned tenacity there and determination. So where does your determination, what inspires you to keep going through the struggles, through the hard times?
It's purely and simply the difference that you make. So I'm not going to lie and say that every day I wake up and go, hooray, it's another one of them days. Some days it's not easy. In fact, a lot of days it's not easy. But then you see the difference that you make. You see the light coming back into eyes that wasn't there before, and that can be the animal's eyes or the people's eyes, because when someone arrives here for the first time, whoever they are, whatever species they are, they've often almost given up, like there can't be a way forward, and they can, and so that keeps me going. And even the story of how Shy Lowen came to be with Comet, and with the site being a demolition waste dump, and seeing how something can transform almost just because you will it to. Because there's been a lot of that too. Yeah, but just because you you kind of decide that that's what's going to happen, then that's what does it. And the more years go by and the more that things change for the better, it gives you something to draw on. So as I'm getting older and a bit more tired and a bit more worn out, um, if I ever feel like a day where I just think I can't do this anymore, it's just too much, then I remember all the other days when I thought that and what came from it, and that effectively drives the next step
Yeah.
and the next step, and that's it. It's the difference that you make.
So, what effect do you think Shy Lowen has on easing the burden on public services in regards to social services and mental health services?
So, well, I have a. It's not my line, but it's a line which I know is true. And in terms of children, there's a lot of problems with children in this area, with antisocial behaviour, and because we're a city area and we're talking about recovery and things, children who are drawn into county lines type work. And I think that not just Shy Lowen, but places like Shy Lowen as well, who can show people who have been brought up in a difficult area and have been brought up in a society which is violent and being brought up in a society where it's difficult for somebody with a background like that, a, a, a background in a deprived area. It's difficult to see how you can succeed in life other than by earning the money that can be earned through, like, the sale of drugs or finding a way for yourself. Um, and the whole story and the whole ethos behind Shy Lowen, where it's that violence is never the answer and that communication is the key to everything, and that everyone's welcome without judgment. Um, and the fact that it was kind of born out of adversity itself. The whole thing is that it's like succeeding when it appeared to be impossible to do so. So I think that the whole message of how this place came to be and how this place operates is an inspiration in a way to anyone who can't see a way forward other than to do things by some kind of illicit means. And we've turned so many people around who have gone on themselves to say, particularly young men, who've gone on to say that if they hadn't come here, they know that they would have ended up in prison. And to know that this community, which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I mean, we're really lucky because we're on the edge of a city, but there's so much green space here, which you don't really have when you're in a city areas. So the fact that the community is welcome here, the community has a say here, that it doesn't matter who you are, you're welcome here. The fact that access to kind of elite sport is available to everyone, even if they haven't got a penny in their pocket, because it doesn't make any difference. The fact that family times can be spent here. We have open days here, which I didn't mention before. And if you haven't got a penny in your pocket to pay at the gate on your way in, it's by donation and it doesn't matter. people can come anyway. It doesn't make any difference. Um, so it's really, really important for the community in a place like this to have organisations like this, which will show you that there's another way and allow you to spend time with your families where you're safe and where you can just be and have fun and not have to worry about what anyone thinks.
Yeah. So, what does the future hold for Shy Lowen? What's your plans for the future?
So, first plan, which is going to happen any day now, is that all of the pathway areas are all going to be surfaced with rubber surface pavers, which have a fall capacity. So if people fall on them, they don't get badly hurt. That's the plan. And that will mean that people in wheelchairs will be able to be taken around on individual horse-drawn wheelchair carriages. So people in wheelchairs can go round and their families can be on horseback if they want to, or walk if they want to. And we've done lots of tree planting and everything here over the 25 years we've been here. It's all mature now, and there's loads and loads and loads of wildlife. So you can do nature trails on horseback and horse-drawn carriage. And then there's going to be, so we do guided meditations with horses and campfire stories. And there's going to be a dedicated zone for that with seating made out of logs. So it's all going to be like natural stuff. Picnic blankets are supplied, so you can go on the floor if you want to be grounded completely to the earth. And we're going to have, after all of that's done, we're going to have a cover over the outdoor arena that where we do our horse riding and everything now. That's going to have a roof installed, but we have to get planning permission for that first. But it is part of the new lease agreement. So on the basis that the council have given us a lease agreement with that on it as a condition, one would hope
Yes,
that we get the planning permission to build it. We will get the planning permission to build it. So that'll be the next thing. Moving on from there, what we really want to do is have a veterinary unit, not only for the Shy Lowen horses, but also so that we can offer veterinary assistance to people who are struggling with vet fees, because, like everything else, they're really expensive right now, and it's not the fault of the vets. They've got to make a living. They've got a difficult enough job without arguing about how much they charge. But yeah, so that we can do something along the lines of like the PDSA do for dogs and cats, something along those lines that we can do for horses locally anyway. And we would also, moving further forward, like to take Shy Lowen around the country. So there should be a Shy Lowen everywhere.
No,
Not just
I
here.
agree with you there, definitely.
We nearly did it in Nuneaton a couple of years ago now. We were offered a site in Nuneaton, but it turned out to not be exactly what we thought it was initially. So we got planning permission for the site and everything, but we didn't actually go through with it in the end because we were going to be the neighbour of a big supermarket chain on the same site. So that wasn't going to really work. Or an industrial unit site, one or other. So that wasn't going to work for us. But it certainly showed us that it's possible to do it. And the support of that local authority was immense. They were actually prepared to pay for the planning permission for us to do it as well. So it was really good. So yeah, we're going to take it around the country.
A good idea. I like it. Maybe I should have asked you this at the beginning. What does Shy Lowen mean?
Shy Lowen is Gaelic, and it means home of happiness. And one of the reasons for giving it a Gaelic name instead of an English name is that it was a bit of a going back to basics, back to our roots, if you like. So the UK as a whole is Celt in nature. We took the name from Cornwall, where they still speak a bit of Gaelic too, and it's Gaelic, English Gaelic from Cornwall, and it means home of happiness.
Certainly been my home of happiness for the last year or over a year now. I think that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Stuart.
Going to warm up now.
In September.